Lauren Betts is predicted to be the top pick in the 2026 WNBA draft.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everyone, welcome into Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Kalia Butler. Alongside me is my co-host, Sophia Jones. We're going to talk about the 2026 WNBA draft. ESPN released its mock draft just of the first round, top 15 so far. We're also just going to get into some of the WNBA coaching vacancies and some of the predicted coaches that can go to some of these open spots. We're also going to address what Angel Reese had to say about the media and her relationship with them and us as media. How could we possibly serve these athletes better? But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. All right. ESPN, obviously these things always come really early, Sophia. We know this, but ESPN already released its 2026 WNBA mock draft so that we can get excited about certain players that we're seeing in college play so far this season. At number one, it was Lauren Betts. And this is all about if the Wings win the draft lottery. So it's saying that Lauren Betts is going to go to Dallas as of right now. If the Wings win the draft lottery, it can mark their third number one pick in 6 seasons. Obviously, with Lauren Betts, the first team All-American last season, averaging 20 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, and 2 blocks, shooting 64%, almost 65% from the field. She's 6'7", a traditional center. We were just talking about this. This could be really good for Dallas, a team that relies heavily on their guards. This can maybe get them some paint touches.
Definitely. And I think when you look at the guards in a Paige Beckers or Rike Ogunbowale, both of them are incredible playmakers and passers as well as just offensive scoring forces. So for players to just have that ability to lob it inside and Lauren Betts catches and finishes, we've seen the way that Lauren handles pretty much every single other center in NCAA women's college basketball. And it's hard to really think or imagine if that wouldn't translate over to WNBA. WNBA, of course, definitely is more physical, but Betts has such a strong presence, great footwork, and just a real knack for finishing around the basket. And having that inside threat, of course, collapses the defenses where players like Paige and Enrique can create more on the perimeter. They can use Lauren as a pick and roll threat because no one likes to have a 6'7" center screening them in the down or in the backcourt. So that can definitely be a threat. So I think that, of course, if Lauren continues the stretch that she's had recently in college, I can definitely see her going that number one pick.
We know Minnesota made it to the finals last season, obviously another playoff push this season, but thanks to the lottery and a trade that they made with Chicago in 2024 for the 2024 trade, they are going to be the second pick. They're supposed to be the second pick for the 2026 draft. And right now they have Olivia Miles in there. I think that was an interesting one. Obviously, a team that handles the ball very well. I think when you add another ball handler in Olivia Miles, and also just another shooting threat, scoring threat to the Minnesota Lynx, I think this could also be a good fit for her there.
Yeah, I think when you think of Minnesota's offense and style of play, it's multiple people touching the ball, multiple ball reversals before you get a paint touch. They play very fast. Everyone has the ability to bring the ball up the court. And I think Olivia Miles, again, with her playmaking, her vision, also a little bit of her flair as well, fits well into that Minnesota Lynx style of play. And then her defense as well. But when you're looking at the point guards that she would be potentially playing behind in a Courtney Williams, Natisha Hyman coming off the bench, she was second in 6 Woman of the Year votes. That's a very loaded position, but it would also be a great opportunity for her to learn from players like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the development piece could be really nice for Olivia there. Again, difficult when you have a Natisha Heidemann and a Courtney Williams. Basically, when you have the stud buds in front of you, who clearly have been very dominant these past couple of seasons. And I think this season is when we really just saw their playmaking ability and their ball handling ability really take center stage. But again, always opportunities for her to grow in that. And I think obviously Minnesota does a fantastic job at developing any player that they have, whether it's from a rookie or somebody who's been there for multiple years. That system just works really well and puts people in their best environments. Obviously, not the season they were looking for, but Olivia Miles could be a good fit there. So at number 3, they have Azzi Fudd going to Seattle. I thought this one was interesting when we looked at Seattle. So this is some stats from Seattle this season. So they shot 34% from three-point range during the regular season, slightly lower than their 34% in the postseason. When you look at somebody who has a high motor when it comes to shooting threes and lets that thing go quick, that is Azzi Fudd. Could she add some more perimeter consistency for Seattle? If she, remains consistent throughout the season and if she adjusts well to the WNBA, do you think she could be an added threat from the perimeter for them?
She definitely could be. The Seattle team intrigues me so much, though. Of course, they decided not to renew Noelle Quinn's contract, their head coach. They have a couple players that will be entering free agency. So this could be a very different Seattle team by the time they actually get to the draft, maybe even the draft lottery. We don't know. And so it's really going to depend on if maybe they're looking at doing a complete rebuild, honestly. And I think that if you can do a rebuild behind a player like AZ, she can handle the ball, she can shoot the ball, she has the personality as well to kind of lay the foundation for a good culture. She could definitely be a good fit in Seattle, but of course, we don't know what fit Seattle even is offering at this point. But again, every team can use a shooter, and AZ Fudd is one of the best in the country.
At number 4, we have Ola Pham, who would be going to Washington. Now, if you don't know who she is, you probably should start knowing who she is. She's a Spanish professional basketball player for Valencia. She is Senegalese, though, correct? Sophia, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But she's
Sure.
playing for the Spanish professional basketball team. She's 6'6", and she's only 19 years old. To me, there's a lot of draws and comparisons to Dominique Malunga, who had a really strong start. You can just tell she needs a little bit more development. I think maybe Ola Pham can be similar in ways to her. And we're seeing this overseas talent come to the WNBA. And they've said themselves that it's a little bit of a different style of play. But when you have a 6'6" player coming in who is so versatile, I think you're going to let it figure itself out. But somebody that people should definitely take notice of.
Definitely. And I think when you look at a player like Damalonga and the precedent that she set with how quickly she was able to adapt to the game over the course of a season, she was another 19-year-old coming from Europe. That I think that makes GMs look, oh, look what they have going on. I kind of want a little bit of that. And Amafam, I think she really does present that watching her play. She runs the floor so well in that 6'6". She's extremely mobile and agile. She handles physicality really well in her back to the basket moves. She can hit the three-pointer as well, so she's a good floor stretcher, but great length and motor. And I was actually impressed with her ability to set teammates up with some great passes as well. But again, I think that even when there is uncertainty about this WNBA season, of course, with the CBA negotiations and the potential of a work stoppage, we don't know what this WNBA season is going to have in store. And I think investing in maybe some youth that you can develop a little bit is a pretty safe bet.
Yes, before we have to move on into our next segment, I'm going to read through some of the other names that are on there. I think this could be an exciting one for people depending on how the Chicago Skies post or offseason kind of works out. But they have Flau'jae Johnson at the 5th pick going to Chicago, and Angel and Flau'jae being able to reunite, if that all works out, would be fantastic. Had a career best 18 points per game and 38% shooting from behind the arc. You want Flau'jae on your team for sure. And a Chicago team that needs some more guard play, somebody else who's going to stretch the floor. She has great size as well. She's 5'11". She would be a fantastic addition for the Sky. We have Cotie McMahon would go to Portland. Yarden Garzon would go to Golden State. Sarah Williams, Washington, coming from UConn, 6'4" power forward. Or UConn transferred, correct?
UConn transfer from Wisconsin, so this will be a little bit of a proving year for her.
Exactly. Janiah Barker at Indiana. Gianna Niekamps goes to Washington. Ayana Martin-Carrion would go to Connecticut. Ashlyn Jackson, coming from Duke. I like her a lot. Great shooting guard. Would go to Atlanta. Kiki Rice, coming from UCLA, would go to Seattle. Medina Okot would go to Connecticut. Another overseas player from Kenya, who is a 6'6" rim protector and field goal machine. She's going to be at South Carolina, so make sure you keep your eyes peeled for her as well. But after this, we're going to talk about the WNBA coaching vacancies and what these mix and matches could look like in the offseason. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. Whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors, this training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Alrighty, so there's some positions open for WNBA head coaching spots. Obviously, coming to mind first is the New York Liberty letting go of Sandy Brondello. That's going to be an open spot. The Wings firing Chris Koekelanes. I've never said his last name correctly. I'm so sorry.
Chris Koekelanes, you're good.
Koekelanes. I've never once said it correctly. That's another opening out in Dallas. As well as for the Seattle Storm firing Noelle Quinn. So, Sophia, if you can just start us off with the Liberty, who are they taking a look at?
A lot of people to start off. There are a lot of names thrown around that we've been seeing and hearing of. Their general manager said that the Liberty needed evolution and innovation, which is very interesting because they had one of the best teams. I think they were just a little hindered by injuries this past year. But one of the names that I'm most intrigued in that I've been seeing thrown around is Lindsey Harding. She is a current assistant coach for the Los Angeles Lakers. Before that, she was G League Coach of the Year with the Stockton Kings and spent a little bit of time as an assistant for the Sacramento Kings. I've actually been able to interview her a couple of times, and she has a great just mind for basketball, a real fire to her as well. You can tell when she talks about the sport that she has a lot of love for it, a lot of love for her players as well. And talking to some of her former players about her, they really just say she does a great job of relationship building. And I think when you think of a team like the New York Liberty, it attracts a certain personality. You know, like New York, like it's New York, you know?
New York.
New York. But I think that Lindsey Harding really does kind of fit into that a little bit. She's an extremely hard worker, first and foremost. And some other names we're seeing mentioned are Mercury assistant, Christy Tolliver. I think she's another one of those, just hard worker. We saw what the Phoenix Mercury did this year. Some great stuff. She was a very smart basketball IQ mind as a point guard when she played in the W. And another one I say I'm interested is Sonia Raman. She was the Liberty's assistant coach last year, and she's being of course, interviewed for this job. She also spent some time as an assistant for the Grizzlies. Head coach Taylor Jenkins said that she has a high basketball IQ and a tremendous ability to teach the game. She is the winningest coach at MIT in history when she was a head coach there. So she's accomplished some really special things, but I find it interesting when a certain organization is talking about evolution and innovation, but you're looking at hiring someone from that same staff that you just let go the head coach of.
Mhm.
So I just find that a little interesting. I do think it sometimes makes transitions easier. Say if you keep a lot of the same players and you're looking to have the same system, she would be one that would just be good to maybe see a fresh new face, but still, have the same things on board that led them to success.
Then when we look for the wings in Dallas, I think you also going back, I think you brought up a good point as well. Just when you're thinking of New York, you're thinking of grit. You know what I mean? Like it's somebody who's just gonna grind it out. And I think all of the coaches that they're looking at right now have that sort of we're gonna get down and dirty and we're gonna figure this thing out. But when we're looking over at Dallas, a team that actually was looking at Sandy Brondello, somebody has to pick her up. There's no way you are the winningest coach for New York and nobody else picks you up. So maybe we could see a Dallas take her, we could see a Seattle take her, or we can see one of these newer teams, a Toronto Tempo pick her up. But going back, Dallas, one of the teams that we're taking a look at her. And one that stood out for me was the Baylor head coach, Nicki Collen, who came to Baylor from the WNBA's Atlanta franchise. She spent the last 3 seasons at the helm for the Dream. So in her rookie season, Atlanta resulted in a 23-11 season back in 2018, where she was also the WNBA Coach of the Year. And she had honors for that and helped the franchise to the WNBA playoff semifinals. So I think when we're thinking of a player who also just has had experience being in the league already, I think a lot of teams have also looked at former NBA coaches, which has been interesting. But I think with what we've heard from some of the players, or even just when players are thinking about just these leadership roles, I feel like a lot of them have like players that have been in these positions already. She's one that stood out for me. Sophia, who stood out for you when it came to who Dallas is looking for?
I mean, of course, aside from Sandy Brondello, I think that she has to be like wherever she decides it's going to be wherever she decides to go at the end of the day, and then it's going to be a domino effect after that. But I also like Nicki Collen. I think when you look at her time in Atlanta as WNBA Coach of the Year, and then what she has been able to accomplish at Baylor recently, just pumping a little bit of life back into such a historic program, she already shows that she's a winner and that she has won. She's coached some very high level talent, and her coaching style is very up tempo with high volume perimeter shooting. And when you're looking at a team like Dallas and just 2 main players, again, Arike and Paige, they are up tempo players and high volume perimeter shooters as well. So I think her style of coaching would also fit into the existing players.
And then when we look at Seattle as well, also looking at Sandy Brondello, but they're also looking at a Fever assistant coach as well.
Yes, Breon January. She also played 14 seasons with the Seattle Storm, so already familiar with the organization, with the city. And Breon January is one of the best. Yeah, I think you can say it. She is one of the most highly regarded defensive players in WNBA history. And she spent this last season with under Steph White, who I think she deserves so much credit in keeping that Indiana Fever team afloat with the
Mhm.
amount of injuries. So she's learning from a great mind. She already has a great mind and a tenacity to herself as well. So that would definitely be someone I think also to bring a little youth to that Seattle team. Their roster is a little bit on the older side, or I'll say the veteran side, with like a Nneka Ogwumike, Erica Wheeler, Skylar Diggins, of course, even a Brittany Sykes. So Breon January, she's in her late 30s. I believe she would be one of the younger head coaches that, again, I think sometimes having that youthful fire is good.
Yes, and then Portland. So Portland has confirmed who they hired. It's
Yeah,
no longer a
yeah.
little tease. They confirmed that they hired Alex Rama for the Tempo. Still no coach, but they are also strongly believed to be centering their search around Sandy Brondello. But they've also considered James Wade, who was an ex-Chicago Sky coach, and he's currently the GM and current Raptors assistant. And then they also looked at former Atlanta Dream coach as well as the Chicago Sky's assistant coach, Tanisha Wright, who I think is an absolutely fantastic coach. But they also have a couple of others in there coming from other teams, essentially from the Mystics, from the Wings. They're doing more of a search within the WNBA is what it looks like.
It does. And if I were the Temple, more than any other team, I think you want Sandy Brondello. I think there aren't many other head coaches that you could think of that would be better to start an expansion franchise with. We saw this past season with the Golden State Valkyries and Nana Nakase, how she just set them up beautifully to have a very strong next couple of seasons and maybe franchise history as well, as long as she's coach. And Sandy Brondello would do the same. She's Australian, so she has international experience. And Toronto, of course, in Canada, international, even though it doesn't feel like it
Doesn't
all
feel
the
like you
time.
put it in.
It doesn't feel like it, but I mean, still. And honestly, that could be something to factor in. And I think for a player like Sandy Brondello, a place like Toronto could be where she fits in. I have a little bit of family in Toronto, so that city has some good love for me.
So maybe they could include you in this next search as head coach as well, since you obviously already have the. we could. Coming up next, we'll talk about Angel Reese and Taylor Rooks' interviews that they just had recently.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. So what are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
All right. So Taylor Rooks and Angel Reese just had a podcast together. It was on Angel's podcast that she has. And I thought it was just very interesting in multiple capacities. The number one thing that stood out to me was Angel said that she would rather take a fine than have to talk to media anymore because of what she has experienced, especially I think this season was maybe the final straw for her. She said it doesn't matter how nice the question is, things are constantly misconstrued. She said that a reporter could really ask the nicest question and have, no harm behind it. And no matter how she responds to it, somebody is going to find a way to spin it. And whether that be from the actual article itself, or we have seen a lot of clipping of what Angel has said with zero context, people can believe whatever is in front of them. And I think a lot of this just made me think back to her press conference after the end of her LSU career, when she said that she had been sexualized, received death threats, and been threatened multiple times since her team had won the NCAA national championship back in 2023. And then obviously just with some of her more recent comments that were made, a lot of that was also misconstrued, whether, people agree with what she said or not. Nonetheless, the facts are a lot of it was misconstrued as well as how it was presented, which led me to genuinely feel bad. I think as, two people in media, it's disheartening to see players not feel comfortable talking with us. But it was also heartwarming to see that Angel looked like she genuinely enjoys speaking to Taylor Rooks. So Angel doesn't have a problem speaking to members of the media. They had a fantastic conversation. Taylor Rooks is one of my favorite journalists ever. It's heartwarming seeing Angel be able to speak to her, express her grievances, and explain why she feels the way she does. And, Taylor being able to take the journalist side of things and also understanding her as an athlete, where she's coming from. But it led to the bigger question of how can we better represent these athletes where it's not just swaying. Our job as a journalist is to be neutral, but it seems a lot of what has been covered specifically around Angel is overly polarizing.
I agree 100%. I think one of the things that she also said was she could say that the sky is blue, and
Yeah.
then someone would clip it and make it seem in a way that, I don't know, she hates sunny days, something like that, you know? And I just think it's, again, I'm in agreement with you where as media members, I've always felt like it's been my job to humanize these athletes and just put them in the best light possible and just uh, honestly the opposite of what has happened to Angel Reese and a lot of other players in the WNBA and honestly athletes in general if we
Mhm.
want to spread it out even further. But like you said, I think with a situation like where Angels is talking one on one with Taylor Brooks, I wouldn't be surprised if that's how we see a lot of media trend
Mhm.
because there are situations where someone might be asking a lob question where in a press room and after a game in a scrum, they're saying, oh, you had say for her triple double game, like what fueled you, and she has all the great things to say. She always is one to put her teammates on a pedestal as well, but it's someone else that didn't even ask that question that is taking these words and picking them apart. And so that's why I think, again, one-on-one interviews is a definite trend that we see going. I think we'll see more moving
Mhm.
forward with some of these athletes that constantly feel like they're being victimized by these media members just for clickbait.
And I pride myself on creating positive relationships with athletes because it's not necessarily my job to be their hype woman, but at the same time, it's not my job to be the cause of their downfall either. I think, especially seeing Angel firsthand and being able to interview her and ask questions, she always gave me wonderful responses. But you can tell that at times she was a little bit hesitant, not necessarily to me, but to other questions. She always had to have a PR member around her to kind of, select which questions she could and could not answer because, again, it goes down to the part of is somebody going to clip this response? She's already, answered or addressed something like this. And as an athlete, she also has the right to control her own narrative. So she doesn't feel comfortable answering the question, she doesn't have to. And that has nothing to do with an attitude problem or anything of the sort. She also has to protect herself and her image at the end of the day. And sometimes I wish as media members, we had a better understanding of that and people outside of it who are seeing that instead of just constantly assuming it has something to do with her. There's a bigger picture here. And as humans first, these athletes always have to protect themselves first. They absolutely should. Like I mentioned, it's hard seeing that or just hearing that because, I enjoyed every conversation I had with all of the players. They were so wonderful to work with. They answered all my questions. They were all so incredibly kind to me. But it was also my job as a media member to make sure that I'm asking the right questions, not just these kind of willy-nilly questions where I'm like, oh, well, maybe they'll take me somewhere. As a journalist, as somebody working in media, you need to have pointed questions for these players because you want them to have pointed responses and pointed answers. You need to have a question that is getting to the point of what you are actually trying to figure out and break down, not just this broad scope of, oh, let's see what she says so that we can utilize to clip this and it'll benefit us. That's not how that's supposed to work. So I see her perspective of not feeling comfortable talking to them anymore.
I do as well. I mean, I've been in a decent number of pressers just as a media member, and someone asked a question, and we're all kind of looking around because why would someone ask that to players and coaches? And it's weird. And I like how you mentioned just that relationship building aspect as well. And I think that's something that has definitely been lost because when you have your motive supersede your interview and the person in front of you, I think that's where subjectivity can really get convoluted in the whole conversation. And that's where you get some of these clickbaits. So, again, like you said, with your conversations with Angel, there have been nothing but just positive and that you've enjoyed them. I haven't had any one on one conversations with Angel, but in some of when I listen to her full media scrums,
Mhm.
everything she ever says sounds reasonable to me. And I think that's just the main thing where, again, people just need to do their own homework and research at the end of the day and not forget that these players are just humans first, I think, first and foremost.
And not only as media members, but also as consumers, please make sure that you are watching full videos of things. There are a lot of things that can be clipped, and we're all guilty of it. I'll look and be like, oh, this person said this, really? And then you go back, you watch the entire video, and you have context. Please have context when you are thinking of what these athletes are
Yes.
saying. So many things are just clipped and thrown out there. Please make sure that you, as a consumer, you, as a media member, are doing your part in making sure that these athletes are represented well because they give so much to us. It's our job to also give back to them.
Exactly. Like let's not allow all, and let's check to see the source. You know, who's the person writing this? What's the account writing this? Um, I haven't been a extreme victim of being Centelled, but I have sometimes been like, "Oh my gosh, what?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's Centel." Let's not do that. Or let's have how about we just take that extra second again, like I did, and be like, "Oh, wait, it's Centel," and that tells you what you need to know.
Exactly. Make sure that you are being you are being a good consumer because you can get scammed out here. Make sure that you are looking for credible sources or just come and listen to Locked On Women's Basketball because we are here to do the research. We are journalists. We know what's going on. But thank you so much for watching Locked On Women's Basketball. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow. We're going to go over some